how many artists have you seen that get picked up by agencies, they pop off, they're put on every single festival around the sun, they go and they do a few headline tours, maybe they haven't built the community that they need yet to actually sell those tickets that agents want them to see those tickets, and then they disappear. I don't want that to happen for me. And I'm taking the necessary steps and precautions for me to not be a puppet, for me to be able to reinvent myself like a pop star would reinvent herself, and for me to build a community that is first and foremost most important in any artist's career is the community that you have around you. Fans, team, family, friends. And like those are like my pillars.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest has been carving out a name for herself as a power player in the dance music industry. Coming from a background in the rock world and playing in bands, she's bringing that same energy into her artist project and truly marching to the beat of her own drum. She just dropped an amazing 7-song EP, played EDC for the first time, and she also runs a badass podcast of her own. This is Lizzy Jane. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. How you doing?
Of course, I'm doing great. I'm super happy to be here. So glad we could finally make this happen. And yeah, I'm excited to jump into the conversation.
You know, I'd seen your podcast popping up. You know, as a fellow podcaster, I'm always stoked to see other people that are bringing the heat with great content and great conversations. And so you popped onto my radar through that. But then I was like, wait a minute. Who is this girl? She's not just a podcaster. She's a fucking badass artist. And I really got to take a deep dive into like, you know, not only learning more about like who you are and your background, but like listening to your music. And I just listened to all 7 songs of your new EP that you just dropped. And it was so fucking good. I'm really like a fan.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I definitely... The EP was a lot. The EP was a big jump for me. I've listened to the podcast many a time to know that you're a fellow metalhead as well. So I come from everything from the old like hardcore to Every Time I Die to Acacia Strain to Impending Doom to like, yeah, that was like my roots. So when I came into dance music, I naturally was attracted to dubstep. And because that just goes very hand in hand, the breakdown, the drop, the song structures, like, oh, I can do this. Just you've written music forever and you know how to play almost every instrument in the sun, but you just need to learn the DAW and learn how to translate what you're hearing in your head into this language of, you know, whether it's Reason or FL or, you know, Ableton, which is like now my DAW of choice. And throughout the pandemic, I definitely took a step back and said, okay, the world has stopped spinning in our industry. And I was getting like my first national touring opportunities right into 2020. And then all of that was no longer happening. Yeah. And yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. I just was talking to another friend, this girl, Kendall, an old student. And there's this like class, generation of artists that all just started having their moment right before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because I think everybody has had to deal with this almost like trauma, like getting so fucking excited. Like, this is my moment. I'm about to go on tour, all these years that I've worked so hard to pay off for, and then to have the fucking rug pulled out from under them. It was like, there's a particular group that started popping in that moment that I think has, you know, just like a specific, I don't know, fucking challenge that they had to go through. So you're not the only one. I've talked to a lot of artists in the similar situation. How did you deal with that? Because that fucking sucks. Like, how did you mentally get through that challenge?
It was years and years of me being a resident at a well-known club in Florida called the Ritz that was really ran by Disco Donnie and Sunset Events. And it was one of those things where I always said, when I leave here, I'm not going backwards, because I had such it was just this weird thing that was not your traditional, in my opinion, like residency or like, you know, dubstep or, you know, open format house music residency. It was the only club in our market that was bringing through national acts that I was playing direct support for. There were no real touring bills. It was only the headliner. I would get to meet their team. I would get to meet the artist. I got like some of my first larger collabs through that, like my collab with Figure, a complete OG, because they would hear me sing before them. And I slowly, throughout the time that I was at that residency, started saying, okay, so I'm kind of done playing like the whole I'm gonna play for the artist I'm playing in front of. And I did like everything a resident shouldn't do. And I started having like my own sets. Like, you're gonna sing every set. You're gonna play your whole discography. You're gonna do everything that you would do if you were on the road touring. And through doing that, I definitely got in trouble a few times, but I also got opportunities from that that led to a progression of me feeling comfortable leaving the residency, because I knew I was going right from playing every week, making an okay income from that every week. And because some people, quite frankly, take whole touring offers for shows in cities that they have to fly to, that they have to pay their hotel, their ground, for what I was making a week to drive 15 minutes from my front door. And I just said I wasn't going to go backwards. I felt like I was moving forward. I had dates with Riot 10 that did come to fruition after COVID, which was lovely. Chris is such like a dear person, and I wouldn't consider us necessarily friends, but he's always been so supportive and like has come on the podcast and made an effort to support the project in like anything I've done. Super kind-hearted individual. But then I also had tour dates with like Black Tiger Sex Machine and artists that were just like really, really, really in the lane in which my music was living in at the time, and the perfect fan bases for me to kind of start that endeavor. And that all went away. And so when we went into COVID, I very quickly, you know, felt comfortable enough in my skill set to where I started a Patreon really quickly. It was like, okay, how are you? It forced me to make way more income than I actually ever did. Just like trying to wake up every day and prepare for my set at the end of the week and stay up till 5 a.m. making music and, you know, kind of throwing things at the wall, trying to obtain all the information. Like I always say, the moment you start, you stop sucking. Like that is the only way. The only way out is through.
I love that.
Like, so you really just have to put in your time. And that was what I was able to do. And I was fortunate enough to, at the end of every week, say, okay, this is 30 seconds of your set. It may suck, but you need to play this song out that you just made. And you need to hear how it sounds on this system. And I really feel like it gave me this whole like push and pull feedback that I wouldn't have gotten really anywhere else. So within that skill set, and then also me having like an extremely large history of like classically trained music, understanding a lot of instruments, I was like, okay, time for the Patreon. Let's do everything from little tips and tricks to edit packs to vocal packs to one-on-one lessons to I can make your visuals, be on call for you, let me help you develop your brand, and I need money. And so the Patreon was super dope, and then the podcast was born as well during COVID. So those two things came up in the very first 4 months. And then I also was just, I think, forced to really turn inward and say, what do you actually want to do with this project? That's not you putting yourself in a position of you're sitting in a genre that is kind of, you have this residency that is in this genre of dubstep and bass music, but are you really using your skill set and your abilities to the maximum amount in which you could? And that answer was no. And so then that forced me to really look inward and start creating music that wouldn't necessarily live under the Lizzy Jane name, but I wasn't established as a national touring act that was dubstep to a point where it was like a getter visceral situation that's like setting yourself up. I'll always say he like sacrificed himself for us because now there's so many artists that are like multi-genre faceted that fans love, and I think the consumers and fans are ready for it. And like that's what this EP was for me. The first songs were really born during COVID. The last songs were written in 2022. And I think that this EP grants me musical freedom to an extent that I've never been able to really like commit to before.
So I definitely want to talk about the EP, and we will get there, but there are 15 fucking things I want to touch on that you just talked about. One, I find it interesting that you say that you were forced to do these things during COVID, forced to look at myself, forced to adapt. The truth is you chose to, because there also is a distinction in this category of artists that were about to pop off in 2020. They had the rug pulled out from under them. Some of them, like yourself, chose to take advantage of the situation. They chose to keep going. They chose to figure out how to adapt, how to keep growing, right? They grew from the challenge. And there's also another part of that class that said, fuck it. It's not meant to be, I'm going to drink myself to fucking oblivion every day, and spiraled the fuck out. Like a lot of artists were just like that stopped them. And then there's other artists that came out and are like, yo, I just wrote a fucking album. I just started a podcast. I just started a Patreon. I just started a mix show, right? So I just want to highlight that and celebrate that and acknowledge that, because that is what I would call the headliner mindset, right? Shit's going to happen. This is life. You don't escape from shit happening. It's going to happen. It should never be unexpected shit. Like, expect shit. Like, it's going to come, right?
Absolutely.
How do you adapt to it? What are you going to do? How do you respond? And so just really want to celebrate you for responding appropriately, because now look, you're fucking killing it. All right, let's go.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And yeah, life is hard. Life isn't supposed to be easy. Like, I get it. It's nice when it's easy. It feels great when it's easy. And it's easier, whether it's like in your personal life or your professional life. It is easier to stay in a content lane. It is easier to settle. It is easier to not push yourself to a place where you're either at peace in personal, lanes or relationships, or you're like at peace or in feeling artistically fulfilled. Like, it's like nothing is sadder or more sad to me than just really meeting people who like aren't in love with the art that they're creating, because I feel that it's really difficult to communicate that and build a community around it when you're not like all in. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. I love that you bring up Getter as an example, because I remember watching him, just, and this is so common in the bass scene. And I've heard a lot of artists talk about specifically kind of in the dubstep and the bass scene, where it's like, all right, you create a brand for yourself, and that brand becomes your business, and there's an expectation of what you make as an artist, and that's what's being sold. That's, the fans are coming, and Getter was just doing straight up hardcore fucking dubstep like a lot of these other artists. And a lot of artists, they just keep doing it because this is what's paying the bills, even though I'm sick of making this shit every day. I'm sick of playing this stuff every night. I'm fucking burnt out on the scene, but I'm trapped because this is what's paying the bills, right? And again, to sort of like separate the pack, there's the artists that keep doing it and they become really miserable. And these are the ones I think that are also getting fucked up every night because they're coping with this trap that they've created from themselves. And then there are the artists that are courageous and that say, you know what, well, fuck it. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to go do some shit that actually lights me up. Getter, like you said, he kind of sacrificed himself. He's like, I'm going to come out and do something super different. And unfortunately, there was a big kind of backlash in the moment. I think fans didn't understand it. It wasn't really done the right way. However, he now doesn't he have the Tara Reid project? Like
he's so talented. Yeah, he's got a million fucking things going on.
Yeah. So it's like he figured it out, but you have to fucking take the leap of faith and trust that it's going to work out. Even if it doesn't work out in that moment, just knowing that you are actually walking towards what your soul is calling you to, right? Not just staying in the comfort zone. I always use LS Dream as an example as well. Sammy, he used to be Brills, right? He used to be Brills. And I remember he was a really good homie. He was always like a part of Icon Collective and always came in to do talks and stuff. He's become a good friend. I remember in that moment, he was like, yeah, man. He's like, I'm just fucking burnt out on making trap music. I'm not enjoying this anymore. He's like, I literally just basically shut down my whole business. And he's like, I'm back to being broke. He's like, I'm back to being a starving artist, but I know what my calling is. I know where my inspiration is at. And it was just like, yo, just give me a little bit of time. And a year later, he's selling out fucking shows. And now it's one of the coolest shows ever. So I think the nature of being an artist is taking risks. Even just choosing to be an artist in the first place is like, I'm not trying to do the normal 9-to-5 template. And you can't then just get comfortable and stop taking risks. Like your whole life gets to be about living on the fucking edge.
100%. And I think that I always say if we were working in a traditional corporate America 9 to 5, we would all be millionaires because of how hard we work every day and how we don't even, we don't think of it in aspects of like clocking time. We're working all the time.
Yeah.
We are working from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Yep.
going. But it's so different because it's your passion and you love it. And it's like, it is a privilege to pursue your passion because there's a lot of people in life and in this world that don't have that privilege to say, I love this so much, but I don't have the window of opportunity to really go after it. But the people who do have that and you're able to do it, it is one of those like cliche things, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Like, yes, are there things that feel like a job sometimes? Abso-freaking-lutely. You're not gonna love every aspect of everything. Like the TikTok content was really difficult for me. Super difficult. I am like a very artsy person, and the way that I envision things and the way things that I want to be rolled out are things that I don't think connect with your everyday Gen Z fan or like the younger kids nowadays. So it's like, how do you find that happy medium and feeling artistically fulfilled, but also reaching the audience in which you care to reach? And I like always remember when I sat down and I talked with Nitty Gritty, he was like, 80% for the algorithm, 20% for me, and then I switch it the next year and do 80% for me and 20% for the algorithm. I love that, right? Yeah. Like, I love that.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. And that's
so
the thing.
good.
I talk about that a lot. It's like, it's the balance of you are an artist and you're a business owner. It's not one or the other. And same thing is like, you're a producer and you're an artist. Like, understand the math and science of how production works, learn all the rules and fucking break them. Right? Same thing. Like, be an artist, be super authentic, do you, and know the fucking game and show up and play it. Like, it's not one or the other. So I love that. Right? Now, you mentioned, we talked about this idea of like the 9 to 5 and going the traditional route and going to college. I think I saw somewhere that did you go to college? Did you go down the 4-year traditional route and then in the middle you realized it wasn't what you wanted to do? Tell me about that chapter of your life, because that's a big moment, I think.
So I went to DC. I graduated high school, and keep in mind, in middle school in 7th grade, I started your average shitty garage band, I'm gonna be a rock star type of deal.
Fuck yeah.
And
what'd you play?
And I played bass, piano, and sang.
Okay.
That's like what I amounted to doing at the end of it. But when I started, I just sang. And it was me, and it was 2 kids who were freshmen in high school and one sophomore and 1 junior. So we had a guitarist, a bassist, a keyboardist, a drummer, and me.
Yeah.
And then throughout like 7th grade to 10th grade, it ended up being the same drummer, the same guitarist, and then me. And I wanted to play an instrument because I was like, I know how to play instruments. Why am I not playing an instrument? I picked up the bass, super easy, bass, sing, cool. We had piano and synth in a few of our songs. I was a good pianist. That's what I was like traditionally trained in, what I feel most comfortable in, what I use most today. And I was like, cool, dope, sweet. And then when we were a junior, we did the like Ernie Ball Warped Tour competition to play. And we did like, and we did like a handful of stuff with them. And then we did like all of the Black Veil Brides opening slots in Florida.
What?
And we did stuff. Yeah, we did like cool shit.
Yeah.
And then junior year, we did like an actual tour with Rookie of the Year. And he was like an older kind of alt indie rock guy. And my mom came with us and we went literally around like the whole country, like the whole east to Midwest, and then
sick.
back.
Hell yeah.
And I did like online school, and it was like the coolest experience ever. Now understanding the finances of music, I don't want to know how much money my mother lost to that. I can't even start to conceptualize it, but it was such a cool opportunity that shaped like everything else that happened.
Especially, splitting money between 5 members in a band, I feel like that's why everybody became DJs eventually. They're like, I could just make everything myself on a fucking laptop and not split this shit. So
literally. And like my childhood was Warped Tour. I mean, I remember my first Wall of Death when I was in 8th grade. Bring Me the Horizon, Bring Me the Horizon, the Diamonds Aren't Forever albums. Like my mom was like at the festival, like at Warped Tour, like sitting on like the benches, and I was just this little scene kid. Yeah, she's the best.
We gotta shout out Mom, please. We're gonna cut this clip out, send it to Mom. Fucking thank you for supporting your daughter and being a badass artist. We got to give love to Mom and all the parents out there that actually support their children in being artists and pursuing music, because it's not everybody.
It's not everybody. I'm actually flying home tomorrow to surprise her for Mother's Day. So it'll be the first time I've seen her in like over a year. Amazing. So this will be out after, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm very excited, and she's lovely, and she's always supported me. But yeah, I did go to a very collegiately driven school, and I said, okay, time to grow up. And I graduated high school, and I went to school in DC for a year. I studied international affairs with a minor in Russian. What the hell was I doing? Sweet. I still have like the Russian keyboard on my phone sometimes, and people are like, are you a spy? I'm like, no, I just have it, and I've never gotten rid of it. And I did I'm going to join a sorority. I'm going to be involved in college clubs. And keep in mind, the gym and like exercise is so much of a part of my life and like really helps me be sound creatively. But I was never a sports athletically driven individual. So I never did any of this stuff in middle school and high school because I was like a theater kid and a band kid.
Yep.
And so now I was going to be this well-rounded adult that was going to end up being a political commentator, working on the Hill. Great. Like, love politics, love all of that stuff, but also was so not for me. And at the end of, I think it was spring break of that freshman year, I remember meeting my dad, and we went to come out here to Colorado, and we went snowboarding. And I just remember sitting in the place that we were staying with him, and I was like, Dad, I was like, I'm going to be so in debt, and like, I don't like this, like at all. Like, I don't like this at all. And I didn't want to drop out of college. Like, I still wanted an education, but it was just this little thing where in January of that year, I had ordered like my first DJ board, and I was just kind of messing around with it. And I thought it was cool because I saw DJs were like DJing at frat parties, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, this is sick. And I was still like a metalhead, but I was going to my first electronic dance shows. Eco Stage is a phenomenal venue in DC, one of the best in the world. So like, that was my first rave. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I just said, I want to go into music technology, or I want to go into audio engineering. You know, let's look into this. I was looking at like Berklee College of Music. I could have gone there. I could have come out here to Boulder and done like their jazz program and music program, but it was very hard to justify for the price it was. And I couldn't really make those decisions at 18 years old. And I think and loans are just like one of the most evil things that are on this planet ever. And so I decided to go to Full Sail, which was a trade school, so you better know what you want to do, and study audio engineering, mandatory classes Monday through Sunday, knock it all out. I graduated in 2 years. My last 6 months I did online. I was working at Morton Steakhouse as a fine dining server, and I was hitting the gym every night, doing cardio every morning, going to overnight classes, and any free time I had, I was going to shows. Yeah. I had a really cool community there. I remember I was sitting at orientation, and there were kids behind me that had just gone to Hard Summer, and they were talking about Porter Robinson. And I was like, oh, Porter Robinson, that's like my community. This is very cool. And through that, I really like felt like I got all of this rave going to shows energy out of my body, to a point where when I decided to finish online, I said, okay, now that I'm doing online, now that I'm starting to play shows, now that I'm doing this residency, you're all in. How focused can you be to get to this next spot of where you're at? Because I'm a very impatient person. I think I'm better now than I used to be, but I was a very impatient person, and I still have those tendencies to this day. But it was like, I started DJing, and then I was tired of DJing other people's music. I wanted to be DJing my own music. So then I needed to figure out how to make my own music. And the whole Ableton thing, I started in Reason. I was Pro Tools certified, but a lot of people don't use Pro Tools in this lane. And then I switched over to Ableton because somebody walked in one day and said, why the hell are you using Reason? And that's because I was a visual learner, and Ableton is my choice of DAW to this day. And yeah, that started the climb, the transitional period. And I'm just glad that I did it when I did it, because I could have finished school and gotten a degree. And I still do have a degree, but it's in audio engineering. It's not in political science and international affairs. And I could have done all of that and then decided I wanted to do what I was doing. But I've been like an artist my whole life. So like, why would I stop?
Yeah, it is good that you did it when you did it. And for anybody else that's listening, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when on your journey, because I think this is something that one of the biggest mindset traps that we fall into is that it's too late. I should have done it when I was, freshman year in college. I should have done it when I was 18, right? And that doesn't fucking matter. What matters is what you said, crossing that threshold of making the commitment of going all in, right? There was something inside of you where you're like, I got to go all in. And I love that, because every single artist that I've ever talked to that is successful and doing this full time and like really doing cool shit out there, at some point they had to draw a line in the sand and make that decision for themselves too, whether that's when they were fucking 12 years old or whether that's when they were 40 years old, right? And so what does going all in actually look like?
Oh, this is something that I've gone very much so back and forth in as I've grown into, I think, a 21-year-old adult, and a 26 and 27-year-old adult is a very different thing. And when I was 21, 22, 23, I quit my job at Morton's. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. Like, I was with career servers that had like put their kids through college, all of this stuff. And could I have done that at the same time as doing school and trying to actively learn and obtain knowledge every day and go to the gym and like keep up my health? That's a lot to put in a day. And you're putting in like a 40-hour work week on top of a 40 to 50-hour school week. And that was difficult. So I quit my job. When I went online, I moved back to Tampa, Florida, St. Pete area, which is like my hometown. And I got a really cheap room from a friend whose brother needed a roommate. And I only did the residency and I only worked on music. And I was making $300 a week. I was making $300 a week. I was teaching production lessons, not in an official capacity. I was teaching like, how do you automate? How do you do this? Like other people that were in my community that I knew that I could help them for like $40 an hour, for like $50 an hour, and just teach them the basics, because the basics are the biggest things to this day. Like if you don't have the foundation and you don't know the basics, it's very hard to decide to break the rules or grow on that, or make conscientious decisions on like which lane you want to be more educated on. So I was making very little money and I was not doing anything because I was making very little money, and I was just learning how to make music, like conceptually in the DAW. My journey and path is very different, because I think now in this day and age where you have all of this crazy music tech and you have all of these tools and YouTube videos, and how do you sound like More Kismet, Virtual Riot, Tiesto? I can do it. How do you be educated enough to learn how to musically make memorable records that are going to stay on the shelf, and then conscientiously decide what your sound is going to be, whether that's your vocals defining your sound or your sound design defining your sound, or when it comes to be the marketing and the branding and the actual live show. There's so many different ways you can go, but through that, I was obtaining knowledge. I was learning drastically and making no money.
What you did was you fucking sacrificed, right? And this is one of the biggest questions I think everybody has to ask themselves is, what am I willing to give up? Right? I love this saying that you need to separate to elevate. If you want to elevate to that next level of your life, if you want
that's
to
so true.
Your dreams and your goals, and you want to have something that you've never had, you need to become somebody that you've never been. You need to live a lifestyle that you've never lived. What do you need to separate yourself from? And that might be, for a lot of people, that might be drinking on the weekends, going out till fucking 2 a.m, being hungover all day. I'm calling all you motherfuckers out. You know who you are right now, saying you're about this life, but you're sleeping in all day because you're hungover. That ain't the move. All right. Right. But also, who are you hanging out with? Like your friend circle,
it's everything.
Maybe your relationship, right? It might be you go fucking full monk mode, right? It might be, yeah, you quit that 40-hour-a-week job and maybe you need to be a starving artist, right? Everybody's path is different. There's no one right way to do it. But damn, there definitely is a trend of you probably got to sacrifice some shit. Because at the very least, it's like, it's going to take a lot of time and energy, and we only have 24 hours in a day, so where's that time and energy going? Might just be sacrificing the video game, sacrificing the Netflix, you know what I mean? That extra 2 hours a night, you need to be putting that shit into, whether that's learning music or building your brand, building your audience, learning the business, huge part of it, right? I just like to point out, like, look, there's fucking 5% of people are actually really doing this shit full time, actually really, really going, really, really doing it. What is the commonality is like, most likely they've sacrificed some shit and they're being really efficient with where they're putting their time and their energy. Right.
And I will say that it is not for the faint-hearted. If you are someone who likes to see results like this, it's not going to happen. It's every day you working. You're going to be told no way more than you're going to be told yes. But then you look back and you say, okay, where was I 2 years ago? Where was I 4 years ago? Where was I 1 year ago? And it seems like the more you go on, I always kind of put it as an analogy with like your booking fee, because it's really difficult to get to an $1,000 booking fee, but then it's really difficult to get to a $3,000 booking fee. And then you get to that $5,000 booking fee a little bit easier. And then 10K is really hard. And then after you hit 10K, you just kind of start to keep climbing with certain career moments and momentum behind what you're doing, and ups and downs, album tours, And I feel like that's how it's been, at least in my journey, where it was really hard to get to one place. It was super hard to get to another place. I felt like I took 5 steps backwards and then I took 10 steps forward. And like, that's a very hard thing to mentally conceptualize. And it is every aspect of your life too, based on what you said. It's really difficult because you have to be willing to separate yourself from, quite frankly, sometimes really good people who don't just align with the life that you envision for yourself operating at a higher level. And I think that's more difficult. That's something that I've personally, it's been more difficult for me than anything else, when it's like, I'm not hanging around people who have substance issues. I've separated myself from that part of the industry a very long time ago, and my circle is very small for me understanding that I do get easily influenced, that I do have these tendencies that I can't put myself in. But with that, then are the people that you're around every day and every weekend inspiring you and like pushing you to be better, and like understanding you saying no, and understanding all of these things. And if that answer isn't yes, you have to decide if you're content at the rate in which you're growing, or if you have to pull back to do more. It's hard. It's difficult.
Oof. So well said.
Hard.
So well said. And I've seen so many friends and clients go through that, this stage of loneliness and confusion when you're letting go of people, and it's like, there's this higher calling and this other vision for your life, and having to go through that process is really hard, and a lot of people aren't willing to do it. But I've been there along the way to like hold people's hands as they're like, I'm so fucking alone now, right? Nobody gets me. And it's like, you also have to clear off your plate if you want to make space. If you want to make energetic space for the right people to show up. If your plate is full, they got nowhere to land. They can't show up in your life, right? So you do have to clear that space off, and you do have to go through probably a little bit of a window of being actually really alone and sad and isolated and questioning. And if you're in that space right now, just fucking know you're in the right place, and know the right people are going to show up when you are in energetic alignment with the kind of person you want to be, the kind of life you want to live. Right.
100%.
So you said that things changed a little bit though now, as far as being all in at 27 years old. How does it look different now?
So I, as an adult, realize that I have to do things that keep my mental perception mind, and like going to the gym and doing yoga and like being active outdoors is really important for me. That's why I think when I moved to Denver, I'm not saying to anyone who's in a spot where they feel stuck, pick up all your shit and move. That is not the answer or what I'm saying at all. But for where I was at and how I was established in my like culture and community in Florida, it was the best thing that could have happened for my career and for like my musical separation of like, I'm going on my own journey. I can now choose if I would like to be involved in the community that exists here. I can kind of protect my energy a bit more. I don't know as many people, and you're going to be in a climate in which you can have actual balance in your life. But with that, when I came out here, I was no longer paying $500 for rent, which nobody pays $500 for rent. And it was, okay, so the financial stresses really affected my creativity, and it really put me in like a very not great spot to where I was making money from Patreon. I was having stuff from podcast ads. I was getting stuff from shows, but everybody knows with shows, you're hardly profiting off of shows. And I was still stuck. I was still paying like my expenses of what I could pay, and then didn't really have money to go to the grocery, have a yoga membership, make sure I'm going to the gym. And I realized that with me growing, I want to live a certain standard of a lifestyle. I'm not over here like, yo, let's go get $400 dinners and I'm going to buy the most expensive bottle of wine. It was, I need this to keep creatively progressing. And so like, what do you need to do that? And since I've been out here in 2022, I transparently do have a day job, but it is a remote job with a company that I've built myself up into a position where I know I'm not replaceable. And I've used the skill sets that I use in Lizzy Jane, which is like graphic design and marketing and email blasts and all of this stuff to have a part-time remote job that has great benefits and makes me the money that I need to make in order to be comfortable. And that has, I can go through my everyday life and then maybe go to a show on the weekends or go to a nice dinner. And I'm like, wow, that was awesome. And that was a treat for me working really hard every week. But with that, my days are now, we wake up at 7 a.m. We wake up at 7:15. If you wake up at 7:30, you're running behind. And like, you have to be on top of that. And I know that's what my schedule looks like at least every Monday through Thursday. And then maybe Thursday, if I go out, maybe it's a 9 a.m. wake up on Friday. I always hit the gym. I'm in like a different workout regimen, as I told myself at the beginning of April, we're preparing for EDC, and I wanted to push myself a little bit harder than I've normally pushed myself, but I actually love it. And I actually feel like my energy is way higher. I feel like my mental capabilities are expanded, and I feel like I am getting better with time management. So like, even though I'm spending more time working out than I normally would, I actually feel like I have more free time, which is kind of a crazy thing. But I have, you know, the 20 to 30 hours worth of work that I do for marketing a week. I teach my Patreon lessons. I record my podcasts. I work on my music. At least, you know, I would love to say in a perfect world, we've got a time block every day that I sit down in front of my DAW. And I hope in the near future to have that freedom to do that. But I know at least 4 times a week, we're setting up a batch of music where the phone is downstairs. Nothing is in here. I'm either at a coffee shop and working, or I'm here and working if I'm like recording vocals. And then I'll go to like a legit studio when I actually want to lay down the final tracking. And it's like rinse and repeat. And then on the weekends, I have shows. So the weekends shows at least 2 times a month. I've got usually a Friday, Saturday, or a Saturday, you know, Thursday, Saturday, something like that. So yeah, it's a lot, but I think that I'm someone that if I didn't have all of that, I would be in a much worse place. Like keeping busy, all of that is super important to like who I am as an individual.
Yeah, let's go. You got it fucking dialed in. You know, this is
go.
Exactly some of the lessons that I have in I have a headliner mindset like group coaching program, and like we drill this shit in. It's
I know Sarah does stuff with you because I'm like she's like she loves it.
Yeah, Sarah's been such a rad, such a leader in the community. She's been really incredible. Her energy, you know, is so great. But you know, we have a whole like week where it's like dial in your week, dial in your schedule, you know, like look at like, where is your time going? Yeah. We talk about like getting your, you know, your physical energy right. Also your mental and emotional energy right. Like you are the nucleus of the whole thing. Like you are the machine that this whole thing is running around. So you got to take care of that machine, right? You got to take care of your, you know, your body and your mind. And regardless of, you know, where you're at what stage in your career, also like what path and strategy, if you're just going to be a starving artist and live off of $300 a week, or you're going to do, you know, have a job also. I always say, and I really want to emphasize, there is no one right way to do this. And there's also different seasons. That was a great season for you to do that at that stage. You're at a different stage now. But the one commonality is like, yeah, being fucking dialed in and efficient with your time and being hungry and taking care of your energy and making sure that you are doing whatever you need to do to be in the most creative state that you can, right? And that might look differently for different people, again, at different times. But it's really, it's really cool to hear. You're killing it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I feel like for a long time, like I envisioned myself doing what I'm doing now as far as like operating wise, and I had to make some like really hard life decisions in my life that are not easy. They're not easy. Would have been much easier to not make those decisions. And now I've seen just the changes in that I feel every day. I feel like more confident in my own skin, like all of these things from a very hard decision that led to very minor changes in my daily schedule. So it's not like you have to sit down and say, I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to go AWOL and we're going to go 0 to 360. It doesn't have to be that way. It's small, conscientious changes that like grow into the bigger picture of what you're doing.
And it doesn't work that way either, at least for myself, because I don't know about you. I've tried that. I tried that for years where I was like, all right, on Monday, I'm going to flip the switch and I'm going to be this perfect fucking robotic machine that just does everything perfectly. I tried that shit for years. I would maybe make it to Wednesday and then I would just fall right back to wherever I was. And so I really believe in this idea of progress over perfection. We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to be, you know, machines, but can you get a little bit better? What's that one thing you can start working on and changing right now? Like maybe it's getting up 30 minutes earlier, right? Maybe it's like drinking water. And I like to just choose one thing a week as far as developing habits and getting momentum. It's like this whole week, I'm only going to focus on one thing. And that one thing is going to be like, I'm going to, you know, drink 5 cups of water a day. That's it. I'm not going to worry about anything else. That's the one thing. But just developing that one small habit, you start to, you know, stack them up and start to get momentum, you know? So flipping the switch, at least for me, has never worked.
It's never worked. And it's overwhelming. And then you get like overwhelmed by all the things that you have to do to create this like idealized version of yourself that really half the time is very unrealistic. So I totally have been there so many times.
And you just feel bad about yourself for not doing everything perfectly.
Beating yourself up. Nope.
Not the move. No.
Absolutely not.
I hear that you are getting fucking jacked and shredded, getting ready for EDC.
I know.
Let's go. I'm going out. I haven't been out there since I think it's like 2017.
Oh my God, wait, are you going?
I'm going. Yeah.
We'll have to meet in person. Yeah.
For sure. My bestie, Freddie Lane, invited me as her guest. So I'm super excited to be out there. Yeah, it's going to be cool. So EDC's coming up. What's going through your head? EDC is like, this is the fucking Super Bowl of
I've never
raves
been.
And events. So you've never even been before. Okay, wow.
This is it.
How are you feeling? Tell me about your mindset coming into this, and also like, are you approaching this show differently than other shows, and how are you coming into this?
So with the whole EDC thing, it's definitely a conjoined effort where we are playing the Meta Phoenix, which is like this Burning Man art car that looks like it came out of like medieval time. Because in my mind, I'm thinking art car, like cool, sweet, at EDC Vegas, awesome, but don't expect like much on the production side. And I had known, obviously I know what EDC Las Vegas is, and I've been to EDC Orlando because I'm from Florida. So I'm in my head, I'm conceptualizing something that's a little bit bigger than that, still like a good, like 50, 60,000 people. No, 500,000 people every year. Like the stages are like the size of like 10 Walmarts. Like it just, I've been looking like I'm like a little raver, like through Reddit forums and like Emma's YouTube videos. Because
I've been watching Emma's shit all week. I'm like, I haven't been in so long. I'm like, wait, I need some tips. And Emma, everyone go follow Emma Capotis, Rave Culture Cast. She's the best. I've been texting her like every day. I'm like, yo, Eric Prydz, Friday night, get ready, it's on. But yeah, no, if anyone's going to EDC, go watch her YouTube channel. It's all these like tips for like how to prepare, what to expect, what to wear. Like I'm becoming like a student again. So
I know. So I'm mentally preparing myself. I definitely am like trying to take out this regimented routine in my mind where like I know every day that I still want to go to the gym. I know that I want to see as many people as possible, but I also know that I'm not going to overextend my social battery when it's time to put a hoodie on and go watch a set by myself. I'm gonna put a hoodie on and go watch a set by myself. And the art car, we got the production specs maybe 2 weeks ago, and Kyle was like, yo, my manager sent me a picture, and I was like, am I playing on that? And my friend texted me, and she was like, hey, you're playing on the art car that I was like a crew with at Burning Man last year, and this is like a new thing, and it is the first I've released 5-6 drum and bass tracks by now, and I've definitely dabbled in it for the last year to 2 years. Love it, always loved it. Listened to it when everybody hated it. Like I'm that kind of D&B fan, and it also, when I was making the transition really during COVID and out of just this really heavy dubstep lane, I have like this raspy singer, old songwriter soul voice that has never been your traditional Kara top liner. I'm gonna belt to the moon and the stars, and I'm gonna be your perfect like princess vocalist. That has never been me. Like my vocals are very unique. Metalhead. Yeah, my vocals are very unique to itself. Like I know how to scream, like all that. And when I started singing on top of drum and bass, I was like, wow, this actually works really well. Like this works like a lot better, and it just sounds sonically correct, at least in my opinion, and like my peers around me. And so that's what really drove me into that. And then I would just hear so many songs that I love, like old nostalgic songs, like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and or like the new Artemis song, like the I Like You the Way You Kiss Me, like all DB. I'm just like, so I can hear that all day. So I've been making a bunch of bootlegs. I'm premiering a new collab with Joel Cruz that is very old, like UKF D&B vibes, and I'm just like, yes. So this will be the first all Lizzy Jane drum and bass set, because the way it was sonically booked is only drum and bass all night long. I was like, I've been waiting to take this jump. Like I usually have melodic bass, my old discography into D&B into melodic bass. That's kind of the progression. But I always play like I love a good headaches track. I'm not over here spinning like neuro bass, like drum funk stuff. Like I'm very melodic D&B, liquid D&B. So I now get to take this like dive and I think really be a bit more of a tastemaker than I usually am in my sets, where if I'm playing stuff, it's usually like, how am I fitting my own stuff pocketed between other songs? Now I can take people on a little bit more of a journey. So really excited. Apparently there's going to be fire everywhere. So pumped. Going to be very exciting. And then on top of that, I announced this morning I'm going to also be doing all of the Insomniac Radio stuff. So I'm going to be
like hosting. Yeah. What? Let's go. So, that's huge. Yeah. That's such a great look. It's really, really cool. And I don't think they could have chosen a better host for it.
I'm excited. So, and I know so many of the people, I've had so many of them like on my podcast before, or I've toured with them. So I'm like texting like Layla and I'm texting Kiva and I'm like, hey, like I'm probably going to be interviewing you. And they're like, oh my God, I was so nervous. This is actually so clutch. So it's just cool. It'll be very rad, and it's the epitome of like what I want my project to be. Like you don't have to do just one thing. And I know I'm not saying everybody go out and start a podcast. I think now we have like a really great network of podcasts that you can go to laugh, to learn, to be educated about your favorite artists, to, you know, stuff like with you, that's all about the mindset of like getting yourself in the right energy and the right mental headspace to progress in what you're doing. Like everyone kind of has this niche, and then you have the OGs like Willie Joy and Mr. Bill, and like it's cool, and it's like this community, but it's something that has become such a huge part of like who I feel like Lizzy Jane is, in addition to the art, that I always wanted to separate it when I first started, because I was like, no, like they're not going to take me seriously as an artist. Like I want to be this creative, like Picasso artist of like this, like all of this shit. And then I just said, you know, and I had people around me who influenced me to take down those barriers which needed to be gone, where it's like, let one help the other. Like, Joe Rogan wouldn't be playing Madison Square Garden. No offense, Joe, you're a great comedian, without the Joe Rogan podcast. And it's like, I'm okay with that. Like, I have to be okay with that. And that was a really hard hurdle for me for a long time. But now it's led to like stuff like this where it's still my name and it's like my brand. And like through that, people will find my music. And that's all I care about. Yeah.
And it really boils down to how you identify yourself as an artist. What does being an artist even mean? Right? Because like, does that just mean being a music producer? Does that just mean making music? Because there's a lot of artists that have a lot of different platforms for the art that they create. I didn't really see myself that way at first, but I'm realizing, I'm like, hey, this whole little podcast, this is a piece of art. This is a creation, right? And we are just transmuting our creative energy from our thoughts and from the universe and bringing it into the world. That's our job, is to just birth these ideas. And so, yeah, music is one way. Also, like, I love seeing people that really are all about like the fashion and that side of it too.
Yeah.
You know, like, we're going to go to EDC. It's like everybody's going to be expressing themselves as artists by the makeup that they wear, the outfits that they wear. Like, that is fucking art, and your podcast is art. And so I really inspire all artists to start seeing themselves in a bigger picture of like, you know, your whole life ultimately is the piece of art, you know? And so don't limit yourself to it just being in that one modality.
It's the limitations. I think limitations are a huge thing, where when you're an artist, you see yourself, and a lot of it's based on like other artists' paths. You know, you can learn from them, but you know what? No, your path is not going to be the same as somebody else's path. We have like booklets and guides and YouTubes and podcasts, but not one thing that happens to someone else is going to happen to you in the same light, in the same way, your same emotions, your same reactions. And I think that you have this like epitome and idealization of how something should happen. Well, I'm going to go from being a resident to doing national tours, making no money, getting picked up by an agent, doing bigger national tours, making a little bit more money, but still not making any money. And then eventually I'll get with a good management team that can help with the big, it's not going to happen like that. It's just not. It's not. It's there's going to be so many different ups and downs.
I love that you bring that up. I do talk about that a lot, of like, yeah, there is sort of the template. Like you said, there's worksheets that you can download. They're going to tell you like, this is how you do it. And it's like, some people are doing it that way, but like, you are the only you. And you also have a specific calling as well to listen to. And I think that that's got to be the guiding compass. Either you're listening to your logic and you're just following what everybody else is doing because there's like a roadmap for it. And that's kind of the easy thing. It's the logical thing. But there's also something inside of you. There's it's energy. You got to be able to tune in to your intuition. You know, I say it's like, follow the breadcrumbs of excitement. That's going to guide you to the thing. And there was something inside of you that was like, hey, I've got this idea about starting a podcast, and that kind of lights me up. That seems exciting. Let me go walk down that path and follow those breadcrumbs and see where it goes and see where it takes me. Right. So everyone needs to like listen to those things, because I think there's always something whispering to you. Right. But you got to be in touch with that part of yourself. And you also have to like silence the external noise enough to be able to hear that voice, right? Because
noise can be loud.
It can be buried in there, right? Yeah, a lot of external noise, right? But obviously, a big part of you being an artist is you making some really fucking cool music. And as I said before, I got to listen to the EP. It's called Ignite. It's 7 full tracks. Just came out pretty recently, I believe, and it is like right away. You have a really cool intro song, and I think it was like the second song on there. It was so full of energy. It's like energy and passion. That was what came across. And I think that's can be so hard for some artists to attain, because I don't know, especially with music production, it's like it can just be a lot of presets and samples and cut and dry. But I was like, as soon as I listened to this, I was like, yo, this is emotion. This is passion. Like it came across so powerfully. And so first I just want to, you know, highlight that and celebrate you for that. It was really, really fun to listen to. And I'm also curious because I saw you really saying how this was like one of the most like authentic pieces of art and music that you made. Mm-hmm. What makes you say that?
Ooh, I think because no one got in my head. There was a point in 2021 when we came out of COVID that I released my management and agents in the same week. And I think they were, you know, at the end of the day, you're the only one who makes the decisions. People can influence you and people can say you should do this, you should do that, but you're the only one who really does it. And I think that they just didn't see what I saw. And it is really important when you're working at a level that I'm working at, that your team, which is very small, could be one person, could be two people, and that's it, which is, for where I'm at, very realistic and what most situations look like. And you like bring in people here and there when you need them, that they get it and that they support you. Because at the end of the day, I think that especially with young artists and people who are naive to a lot of the ins and outs of the industry, you can become easily influenced from people who have been around longer than you, that say like, this is the way you should be doing things. This is the way that we should do it. We should do a rebrand, or we should put like a mask on you, or we should like do this because it's really going to hit with the kids. Like, I am not that type of artist. And I really tried to be like this very, I'm going to take in all the ideas and I'm going to do this. But as I was doing these collabs during COVID and coming out like kind of 2020, 2021, all in like when like color bass and melodic rhythm was like really taking off and like taking the world by storm, it was like, I felt like I was just going through the motions. It was like, oh, you're collabing with this person. Cool. I'll get to work. I'll start writing. We're doing this. And then it's like, wait, do you even like this? Like, do you even feel like you sound good on this? Or do you even feel like what you contributed to the song was like part of what you want your project to represent? And that answer just kept being no, like over and over and over and over again. And I remember the first song that I released that I really fell in love with was a song with a collaboration with a guy named Purge, who is now Motapit, who still does all of the like vocal engineering stuff on my vocals, because I will also understand when I don't have, I love the aspect of collaboration, and I wish it was more invited in electronic dance music. And I think it definitely is now more than ever, but I am definitely one to say, I am not good at this. You are better than this than me. Like Ghost in Real Life, when she came on my podcast, she made a great analogy. She said, you know, I could paint the color like blue and green really great, but I need like a purple and I don't have a purple. So do you have a purple that can help this painting? And like, that's what Doug has helped me with in my like vocals. But I did this song with him. It brought out a totally different side of me in songwriting, singing, production. And I said, okay, this is the type of music I really want to make. And I also was just trying to figure out how to get out of this, again, with what you said earlier, especially in the dubstep and bass lane. You kind of get put in this basket, and then the basket's really difficult once you get past a certain point to crawl out of. And I needed to not let the project get to that point before it was, again, never too late. Could have been harder than it was. But for me, it was then that I needed to say, okay, we need to differentiate. I need to make music that I would not think would live in the Lizzy Jane universe, because I didn't even know. I'm still building the universe. I didn't even know what the Lizzy Jane universe was. I was just having people tell me what it was, and then I was just doing it. And we see this all the time. We see artists that are really, unfortunately, and I see it happen with women who are really good friends of mine or acquaintances of mine that have gone on to tell their stories, that are still currently living it, that are like puppets. And they're just, we're going to pull the strings. We're going to make the music. You're going to go on stage. You're going to tour. You're still hardly making money and living at home, but you're living the dream. And it's like, that's not the reality. And I knew I had the skill set, and I knew I had the creative vision. I knew I had the capabilities. And I just kept feeling like I was like, not being belittled, but just like dulling my shine and like not letting me like be myself. So I had to go back to like board one. I had to literally start over. And like, even now I have a friend who used to work on the project before I was with the people that I let go of, very elementary days, and he just didn't really have an aspiration to work in bass music anymore. Totally cool. We weren't right for each other anymore. Parted ways, great. And I remember sending him the EP, and he was just like, this is what you should be doing, and this is totally you. I couldn't sign it to anyone. We tried to sell it up and down the wall. People liked these songs. They didn't like these songs. People wanted this, but they didn't want that. And I just wanted it to be a cohesive, multi-genre, faceted record. And that's all I wanted. But unfortunately, in today's climate and dance music with a lot of the large labels, they really are looking for something specific, which I understand and I totally respect. But that was not what I wanted to achieve with this. I know how to write a single for a label to get it signed, and we can do that all day long. This was for like me to set that building brick like back to ground zero. That's like the strongest foundation that I've ever had, and say, she wants to make drum bass, she's gonna make drum bass. She wants to make melodic bass, she's gonna make a melodic bass. If she wants to do a live set in 2025 where everything's stripped down at a small venue that's 100 people, she's gonna do that too. And again, this is not right for everyone, and this is the road less traveled, and it is way harder to approach to do things like this than I think saying this is my brand and I'm going to fit in this pocket. But there are artists that have successfully done it and continue to do it every day. I like look up to Maddyon, I look up to Wave Dash, I look up to Porter, like all of those guys. Sonically, not what I'm doing, but big picture wise, exactly what I'm doing. And it takes a long time, but I want to be here for a long time. How many artists have you seen that get picked up by agencies, they pop off, they're put on every single festival around the sun, they go and they do a few headline tours, maybe they haven't built the community that they need yet to actually sell those tickets that agents want them to see those tickets, and then they disappear. I don't want that to happen for me, and I'm taking the necessary steps and precautions for me to not be a puppet, for me to be able to reinvent myself like a pop star would reinvent herself, and for me to build a community that is first and foremost most important in any artist career is the community that you have around you, fans, team, family, friends, and like those are like my pillars in where this record was. I'm setting it out on the table for you guys. This is super heartfelt, and I know we're living in a generation that there's so many things that are going around in this world that are just really difficult to wake up and see every day, and sometimes it feels like creating art is kind of like doing that, almost like an injustice when you're not talking about the things you should be talking about, but it's like things to help you clock out of your day and really just lose yourself in the music. And I think that when people listen to it conceptually back to front, and the way that we released it single wise is like, I want everybody to have their favorite song, and maybe they don't like this song, but they do like this song, and maybe this is the song you listen to when you're sad and angry, and this is the song that you're listening to coming home from the rave with your best friends or your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Like, it's something for everybody, because those are the emotions that I go through every day. And if I want to like express those emotions through my music, then I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to say I'm only going to make this type of music until the day I die, because my project isn't going to last if I do that.
You guys, for the first time ever, I'm going to request that everybody goes back to the beginning of this podcast and listens to it at least one more time, because that was a fucking masterclass on the headliner mindset. That was a masterclass on how to be a true, authentic artist, and from my perspective, really fucking do this thing the right way. So I am thrilled to just have this conversation with you and to share this really, really, I think, important wisdom with the world and all of the artists that are listening. I'm so grateful that you were not forced to, you chose yes. to take the time yes. to come and connect with me today. Super pumped to see you at EDC. We're going to fucking get fun. Down. I'm a newer drum and bass fan, but I am such a fucking drum and bass fan. So I'm even more excited to come out and see your set. Yes. And everybody go listen to the Lizzy Jane podcast. It is incredible. She's interviewing some amazing people, having some incredible conversations. I know the headliner mindset is a nice little microdose for you once a week, but if you need a little more, you need another hit, make sure you get out there and listen to her podcast as well. So thank you again so much for coming on. That was super fun.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.